two, one. Welcome to the Project Egg Show with your host, Ben Gothard.
What's up, party people? What's going on, y'all? We're trying out a new intro here, so let me know how you like it. Anyways, welcome to the show. Like the badass intro said, I'm your host, Ben Gothard, and today we have the honor of speaking with Nick Covey. How you doing today, Nick?
Good, man. How are you?
Dude, I am so good and so fired up and excited to be chatting with you today. You're
Likewise.
the man, and I cannot wait to ask you, what is your story?
Yeah. Dang, that's a long one. That's always like the longest question. But to kind of sum it up, I'm a college dropout, number one. I always lead with that because I think it's just becoming more apparent that that's not really like mandatory thing to do anymore. So I think it's important for people to realize that you don't have to use your education as like an excuse. So that's like the first thing I kind of lead with. And then I was a football player up until about 2 years ago, played professionally for a little bit as a free agent. And then I've pretty much always been an entrepreneur in the sense where just starting companies throughout college, started 4 different ones, and nothing really hit until this clothing brand that I launched about, I think it's been a year. Yeah, I think that's like the first thing that kind of hit. So that's a short summary of my story.
So let's talk about all of these ventures of yours that you were rocking in school, and how did that really work with this belief of not really being able to use education as an excuse and leaving school? Like, how did those things work together? What's the story there?
Yeah, so I think those were actually like a huge contributor to realizing like I didn't really need school, at least in the given field I was trying to go in. Because every time I would start a new venture, it would show me how much I would learn just by doing it rather than like sitting in a classroom. So I was starting to figure out like, man, just by like launching a business, I learned more than I did this entire year of going to classes. So that was kind of like the catalyst to finally being like, you know what, this isn't for me. I'm done. Let's just fully go in on the business and pursue this. And yeah, that's kind of how those affected my decision with school.
So why did you first decide to launch the business?
Like the one I'm in now or the ones before?
Oh yeah, the very first one, the very first one.
Okay. So the very first one was a production company that I was going to school for, like multimedia. So it was film and that type of stuff. And the thought was always in the back of my mind, like, okay, school is going to end at some point. So I might as well start building something that I can just transition into and not wait and then have to look for a job. So that kind of was always in the back of my mind. And then just being a multimedia major and learning the film type stuff, I'm like, you know, I'm just going to like start my own company and then see how it works. So that was kind of like the first one. Didn't really like work out, obviously, because it was not the right thing for me. And I was still learning and still curious about different things, which I think is important. Like in the early ages, you know, is just like constantly trying different things. So the next one was a marketing company that was inspired by just like all the digital marketers out there, which is a great gig, you know, if you can do it. Again, it just wasn't something for me. I wasn't passionate about it. And so it kind of like faltered away. And then the third one was this fitness company called 20 for 20 Fitness. It was these 20-minute workouts. You get them emailed to you every day. So 20 workouts a month. And that was kind of the concept of the business. That one actually took off, and but again, I was still kind of like unfulfilled by it.
So I'm so curious, and I know we're talking a lot about the college years, but I think there's so much wisdom there, especially with what you're saying about learning more by starting the business
Hmm.
than by sitting in classes all year, right? And I actually started my first business in college too, and
Nice.
I 100% agree with you. Like to me, going out there and putting yourself out there and just kind of trying it and doing it and messing up and learning from that, that's the best way to learn. And you don't need to know what you're doing before you start it. Like you figure it out as you go along. You just try.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is such a fundamental misconception today is like people think, oh, in order to start this business, you have to have 30 years of expertise in that business. That helps. I'm sure it does. I'm sure it does. I'm not even 30 years old yet. So how could I possibly have that experience? The only way to get it is to start and to try.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's not a prerequisite. Like you don't have to have it. And that's a problem with like school teaches you that you have to have like a certain amount of knowledge before you start something, but it's totally counterintuitive to everything we do. You know, like sometimes the only way you can learn something, especially in the business world, like you can't teach how to like deal with people, you know, or like relationships or how to lead, like all that stuff you just learn by doing, you know, like you can read a book on it. Yeah. But you're not really going to grasp it until you actually do it.
Yeah,
That's so key.
until you're in there implementing those things,
Hmm.
making it like making mistakes, getting yourself into situations where you're like, well, shit, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be in a situation, but then
Yeah.
you learn, right? Like I'll tell you this, at one point in my very first company, I had a marketing agency too.
Nice.
And at one point, I literally went from like two people working with me, like two contractors working with me, to eight in a period of like a couple weeks. Okay. And I thought that was just gonna be super cool and totally awesome. And it was not, it was gonna be the same thing, just more and better. Dude, I imploded the company accidentally. And it's like if you don't go through that, then you don't learn that kind of stuff and you don't learn how to like get better. So oh man, I
Yeah.
totally agree with you so much on that. So why did multimedia really catch your attention? What was that hook that really like why that?
Yeah. I think I've always had this like desire to create things. I think like at a heart, I'm kind of like a artist, like a designer, a creator in a way. So that always kind of captured my like attention. I was always like, as a kid, I was always like trying to make videos and stuff. And like with the GoPro, like the very first one and the camcorder and stuff, and just like doing like little things. So that was always like something that interested me. And then, yeah, I think I just pursued that a little further in college.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So when you decided, all right, I'm working on my businesses, I am learning way more doing this than school, and you're like, that's it. I'm making the plunge and I'm making the jump. How did that change your like I'm sure you had a certain routine beforehand. And then suddenly you have significantly less responsibility in one part of your life and then a vastly humongously greater amount of responsibility in this other part of your life. It seems like that would rebalance the priority. So how did that actually change your life,
Mm.
and what did you really do differently once you made that transition?
Yeah. I think it kind of got to the point where I was like skipping class to work on the business, you know, because I didn't have enough time like in the day to actually like work on it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of like where the change happened, where I was like, what do I really want to do? You know, and it was a big decision like at the time, because that's what you're supposed to do, you know, and you have all these pressures from other people and yourself. And I think the biggest thing like I learned from that was just kind of having the courage to make the decision that deep down, you know, you should make, regardless of like who it affects or like what the outcome is. Something that like you don't want to look back on and be like, dang, I should have done that sooner. That's my only regret now is like I should have like stopped sooner, you know, but I let that fear kind of stop me from doing it. So that's kind of how that change occurred, was just the business started like taking more and more time until it was at the point where I was like, this is more important to me.
I love that so much.
Yeah.
Like really just being, it seems like really just being brutally honest with yourself about what do I really want? Like, what is the absolute right thing for me to do? And then, I mean, that that takes a lot of balls, I will say.
Yeah.
Like that takes a lot of freaking stones to just like say, all right, I'm doing it. I'm making that jump and to overcome that fear. How did you, first of all, develop the awareness to recognize what that right move was? That's the first question. Second question, how did you overcome that fear?
Hmm. So I think I developed the awareness just by like certain, I think I really started taking self-development pretty seriously around that time. So I started reading a lot of books, listening to like a lot of different tapes and audio stuff that really started to change the way that I was thinking at the time. And also like the pain of like being in that situation kind of drove me to a different way of thinking and to really like dig deep and kind of analyze like, dude, what is the purpose of all this? Like, what am I doing? What? And I think like we kind of all have that question, you know, but we don't really take the time to actually analyze it, you know, like we kind of just ignore it. Like the question pops up and we kind of put it aside. Like, oh, I don't want to face that, you know, I don't want to dig deep right now. I'll do it later. And then it never happens. But I took the time to like actually analyze that question. I started journaling a lot, writing and reading. That was kind of like the catalyst to develop the awareness of looking into myself deeper. And then the second question, you remind me one more time which that one was.
How did you, once you got clarity on that, how did you then leapfrog that fear?
Yeah. So I think it just got to the point, kind of like I said earlier, just like the pain of staying in that situation was greater than making the leap to the other one. I'd encourage people not to wait until that point. But that's kind of what happened with me was like, dude, I can't stay here any longer. I'm doing this. I don't care what happens. Let's go.
I love that ideology of like of developing yourself and improving and changing the way you think to help you overcome that pain and overcome that fear.
Yeah.
And I'm curious because you mentioned how when you started getting on that personal development journey, you changed the way you think. What were those changes? Like fundamentally, what shifted inside of you?
I think the main one is noticing that you can literally do anything you want to do. That was like the big one, was like you're not limited to a certain path or a certain career, especially in today's day and age. It's even more apparent. But that was the main one, was like I'm playing this game of life so freaking small, you know. And just the main thing that helped was like biographies. I love biographies because they just show what we're capable of doing, you know. Like if someone can do that, then I'm like playing it so small. That was like the biggest fundamental change I've had. And then developing the habits of discipline and yeah, just like a scheduled routine to where it hold myself accountable to myself and be disciplined enough to like implement the ideas that I have. Those are the two like biggest pieces.
Dude, yes. Yes, you're freaking preaching, dude. That
Yeah.
is so spot on. I agree with you so much right now. Like, especially on the biographies part. Like, I'll give you an example of one person who
Yeah.
it opened up just a whole nother layer, right? Augustus Caesar.
Mm,
That dude, first of all, he was the first emperor of Rome. Okay. So that dude was a freaking baller.
yeah.
And when now granted, it was definitely way back in ancient times where like he was conquering other nations and definitely killing a lot of people. So there's always two sides of the coin. And at one point, he literally owned the country of Egypt. So there was that. Okay. But the good parts of what what I want to bring out from that is by the time he died, he had accumulated, adjusted for today's inflation, $2.6 trillion of wealth in his
Jeez.
lifetime. One person. And so it's like he was one of the wealthiest people in the history of humankind. But that means it's possible.
Yeah.
It's like it has been done before. It's not even trying to do something new. It's trying to just catch up with how badass ancient people were. You know
Mm,
what I mean?
yeah.
So by that same vein, my question to you is, because I think about this all the time and I always love talking to people like really smart people like you to get your opinions on it. How big is too big? Is there too big? And how do you go about setting the size of your goals now?
Mm. Well, the first part, I don't think there's like anything too big, you know? If you can get enough people behind it, I think any idea can happen. I mean, like, yeah, you just look at like what civilizations have done in the past, and that is all the inspiration you really need. I mean, even look at what Elon Musk is trying to do with like colonizing the moon and stuff like that. Like, dude, literally unlimited possibilities. I think for setting the goals for yourself is it's always like good to look at like what can be done because then you have no limitations on yourself, but you should also not just set your goal like based on that other person. You got to really dig deep in yourself and pick the right goal for you, not necessarily like for just because like Jeff Bezos created Amazon. I'm not going to go out and try to do that because he's a billionaire now. Like, dude, that he had a miserable life though during the building of that Amazon. Like, I don't want that. So picking the right goal for yourself, I think, is huge. And you can only do that by like awareness, like we talked about earlier, and really digging deep into yourself and finding like what you're truly interested in.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And I actually think about this all the time that it's not like the size of the goal necessarily of like, can you achieve it? I think one of the better one of the other questions to ask yourself because everything costs, everything has a price, right? Is the price to pay to get there a cost I'm willing to pay?
That's a
And,
good one, man.
and I don't think that many people ask themselves that question. They're like, I want to be a 400 billionaire. And they're like, are you
Well,
willing
it's like, why,
to
right?
sacrifice?
Yeah. Like, why do you want that?
Yeah.
It's a fundamental like question. You could just keep asking why. But yeah, I think that's so important for people to see. Is I actually had a little vision of that earlier this morning. I was like, if I was speaking to a college or a high school, I would tell them like, don't pick a career based on the end results. Pick a career based on the daily tasks, like the daily life that person lives. That's the majority of your life. So pick a career based on like what you want to do daily, because a lot of that stuff is like, dude, you don't want to do that. Trust me. you know?
That's such good advice.
Yeah.
Because,
That's something I always think about.
well, it's so true. Because, like you were saying with Jeff Bezos, it's super cool being a billionaire. That growth building, like ramping up period, that dude was probably working 120 hours a week.
Dude, Yeah.
Like, yeah, it
In
just
his
seems
garage. You
yeah.
know, like
So it's
no one focuses on like there's what's the price you're willing to pay, like you said, right? You know, if that's something you truly want, then go for it. But
totally.
yeah.
So the question that I have is big surprise there. I have another question for you. But what price are you willing to pay? And where are you trying to go? What's that end
Mm.
goal?
I would say like I don't really have a price, you know, like I can't really be bought, which is like a key thing because what I want to create interests me so much. I do it every day just cause, you know? Um, and that vision being, I think everyone has a specific calling that is true to them that they should pursue and they should follow. And that is the foundation of like my clothing brand, and the message behind it is like pursue what you're authentically passionate about. And getting to the point where it's a global brand that can impact millions of people's lives, because we live in an era now where you can go do what you're passionate about and make a living out of it. So that's my mission, and I don't really have a price. Yeah, do
That's
whatever it
awesome.
takes.
How did you get clear? And it's almost meta. It's like the your calling, it seems, is to help other people find and live their calling. And like your brand is the vehicle that you can go spread your message with.
Exactly. Yeah.
How did you get that crystal clear on that calling of yours?
So it came back to like the same development that I took, like the personal development. And I still do that today. You know, like I journal every morning, like 2 pages, 2 full pages. I just write out like everything, all my thoughts, and just really focusing on like core to me. Like if I strip away everything, I have nothing, what would I want to do? You know? And then this is always the answer is like, I grew up always doing like different stuff, like whether it was snowboarding or skating or surfing or motorcycle riding, hiking. Like I just always did so many different things. And I noticed like at a young age that there was people in each of these professions that were doing this as a career. And that was kind of like the catalyst to me being like, dude, literally you can do anything you want, you know? Um, and so spreading that message has become really important to me, because no matter what it is, we all have that one thing. I always refer to it as like, we all have that one thing that we can't stop thinking about, right? But when we're doing it, we're not thinking about anything at all. That's like, that's the thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is such a good way to put it. Cuz
Mm.
right now, dude, like living proof of that message,
Yeah.
literally nothing else that is crossing my mind right now besides what we're doing right now. And it's
Heck yeah,
like
man.
it's like the show to me is just so powerful, so moving.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm so grateful for incredible people like you who come on the show and chat, because these conversations are so important to me. I mean,
Yeah.
it's hard to even articulate it fully. It
Mm.
really is. So I love that. Of If that's how you think about something, maybe that's your calling. Maybe that is the thing.
Yeah. I
That
think
is the thing.
at fundamental level, it probably chances are like pretty high.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So when you think about when you think about 30, 40 years down the road, this is your calling. Where do you see that being manifested, or how do you see that being manifested way down the road? Like what would accomplishing that, or like fulfilling your destiny, like what would that look like for you?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question, man. I think it would be having an impact at a global scale, like I've kind of said already, but at a level where we have like literally teams in each sport or each field of people who are doing that as a living. So if it's like a snowboard team, we'll have a snowboard team. If it's a surf team, we'll do that. And like sponsoring people who chase what they're passionate about no matter what. Like if you cut hair and that's your thing, like we'll give you a t-shirt, you know, like that's kind of where I want to get to. And like having our own media group to spread these messages. Like the main thing right now is like we share the stories of these unique people. So scaling that to a level where we can produce content like on a daily basis, sharing stories of like different people every single day is the goal.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So it seems like sharing the stories of the people who are living and like living that message, living their calling, in showing like, hey, if they can do it, you can do it, and trying to
Exactly.
inspire everybody else to get into their calling
Yeah.
and be able to just live in their area of genius.
Exactly. Yeah. Kind of like biographies did to me, but on a more accessible arena, you know.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So when everybody, let's say we could flip a switch and everybody is immediately living their calling. They're doing it. Like everybody's now a superhero doing their superhero stuff and being super cool. And very fulfilled and all the other amazing things
Yeah.
that super cool doesn't fully describe. What does that look like in the world? Like how does the world change at that point?
Well, I think it's already kind of pointing more towards that. Uh, like you see a lot of AI type stuff being developed now. And so the jobs of basic tasks, you know, are going away. So it's kind of like pushing us in that direction more, anyways. Like there isn't going to be like a McDonald's chef anymore, you know, like there's nobody going to be cooking burgers except like some weird machine or something. So now it opens up or pushes everyone in a different direction, which I would hope would be the ability to use the internet, use social media, use all these different tools that civilization has never had before to create a whole bunch of jobs where people can do what they love on a daily basis, you know. And I think we would live in a lot happier society than today. Probably, I mean, I only see positive of it. You could look at the negative side, but I just like, I don't see how that could hurt society, you know?
And neither.
Yeah.
So, and this may be, looking at something that's totally theoretical right now and may not ever come up, but like, do you think there will come a time where, in order to achieve this mission of helping everybody step into their calling, that eventually you'll start to need to tackle like very basic fundamental human needs issues like a lack of access to clean drinking water, lack of food, lack of shelter, because it's hard to really like live your genius if you don't know where your next meal is going to come from. You know what I mean?
True. Yeah, 100%. I think at a global scale, that's like going to definitely would be first, you know, is like implementing a charity aspect to help these other countries and other civilizations get to the level that we're at so that they can live that life, you know. But yeah, sometimes you got to just start with where you're at and then build up to that. But I think that's kind of the end goal, or one of the goals in the future, is just being able to help those people get to a level that we're at, you know. I think especially with hunger, no one should freaking die of hunger in the 21st century. For how much food America wastes every month, we could feed the entire world. It's just insane.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. So I'm really curious because it seems like, and we talked about it, it seems like you've done a lot of work, a lot of personal development work, a lot of work on yourself. And I'm curious because I just want to know, like, what questions do you still have about yourself now? Like, where are you working on yourself? And
Mm.
I'll repeat it, but what questions do you have about yourself at this point?
Yeah. I think I'm just constantly trying to find where my limits are, like pushing the boundaries of like what I think I can do. So I'm constantly trying to put myself in like uncomfortable shit, even though I hate it, like I'm about to do a half Ironman this Saturday. Like it's just, I don't want to do it, but I know that in that I will find some piece of information in myself that will help me along this journey, like whether it's confidence or just the ability to know how far you can actually push yourself. I think that's kind of what drives me, because as a kid I was pretty lazy. Like I played video games all the time. I didn't do anything, and I realized like I really had to put a lot of work into myself if I wanted to actually make this dream become a reality. Like I can't be the same person right now and still achieve that goal. Like it's incompatible, and that's kind of what pushed me down the self-development route, and why now I think the main question, like I just keep asking myself, is like, what more can you do? Like what I think Robert Kiyosaki, do you know who that is?
Mm-hmm.
He has like a great quote where stop saying like I can't do this, but like how can I? Because then you start figuring out ways like, okay, how would I actually be able to do this? Even if it's seemingly impossible task, you can end up breaking it down into like little things and be like, wow, this actually might be doable. So
Yeah.
that's something I ask myself daily. um and another one is like, what would I do every day if I was failing? And that kind of helps me stay this course, because it does get hard at times, and it is a lonely route as an entrepreneur or a business owner. There's not a whole lot of people that understand what you're trying to build and understand your vision. So being able to take it back and be like, okay, even if I had nothing, I'd still do this. So stop complaining. Those have been key.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
Well, look, man, I've had so much fun chatting with you today, and
So,
I'm so grateful that you carved out time to be on the show, man. I really do appreciate that. And
of
I
course,
have
yeah.
one more question for you.
Go for
Then we'll wrap it on up.
it.
And by the way, I'm 24, and so I want to ask from my perspective. But what question should I be asking you that I just wouldn't think to ask?
That's a tough one. hmm. Yeah, I don't know how to answer that one. I think, man, this has got me stumped. I would say like, for someone out there who may be in college, or who may be in wanting to kind of take that leap, or wanting to pursue what they're truly passionate about, like what would be the first steps, would be like the question I would ask. But I feel like we kind of covered a lot of that already, like awareness, self-development, those are key. And you hear it all the time, but you got to make it. The biggest thing I want to get across to people is like, you got to make it true to you. Like, you got to do what you truly feel. We all have this intuitive voice that points us down the right path. Oftentimes it's not what we want to do, but like we have a voice that we know what we should do. And I think the more we listen to that, the happier we'll be, the more fulfilled we'll be, and just live better lives. That's kind of the main thing. I didn't really answer your question, but yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So again, Nick, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing this time with me. You rock,
Yeah.
man. Thank you.
Definitely, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. We'll have to link up when you're out here in California.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And to everybody who's watching and listening, I want to thank y'all so much. Um, y'all rock, y'all kick ass, and I sincerely hope that each and every one of you, after listening to this episode, digs deep, finds that superpower, find that calling of yours, and live into it, because you can do it and you rock. So thank you again.
Amen.
Thank you to everybody who's watching and listening, and I will see all of you on the next episode.